I'll be honest, cold has helped me so much, I think, in that response.
Right.
You know, is just realizing that I think those hormones and realizing how I feel. And sometimes I've learned that's a great tool for me, where before I just didn't even realize I was having this. I mean, really growing up, my life was just so tough. I just thought it was supposed to be that way. You know, this is how it's supposed to go. And just avoid it, right? If I can avoid it, then it's not real. You know, I just tell myself it's not, but it's not true.
You were operating from such a place of adrenaline. We all do when we want to push and get something, accomplish something. But what we know, what we teach now is that you can do that, but from a flow state.
Yeah.
So does that change you not wanting to get in an ice bath? No. But can you do it from an internal state of peace and an internal state of courage and gratitude, saying, I know that if I do this, it will be that much better for me, right?
Yeah.
And when we show the physiological difference, that if I wake up and I immediately induce myself into stress, which a lot of us do by grabbing our phone or immediately thinking about the crap that we got to do today or what have you, but instead of taking that moment first thing and shifting to heart, doing some heart-focused meditation, for, even for 5 minutes, we show a carryover effect that lasts through the whole day. I mean, we're talking 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I said 5, but we show in 3 to 5 minutes a huge physiological shift. I can't say that today. Physiological shift, and then that improves mentality, that improves emotional state, that improves everything in the body, shifts you to balance, and then you can go get in that ice bath from a state of peace. Yeah. And then when you're in there, is it that nasty? No. But I feel better because I'm doing something, and that's one thing that Brandon knows Ed Milet said a couple days ago that really stood out to me was self-confidence comes from staying true to what you tell yourself you're going to do every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you start doing those things, but more from a state of peace and from a state of gratitude and appreciation of what's available to you. Now you're working with a different subset of energy, right? We show that energy increase in the body is so much more powerful than doing it from a state of adrenaline. Even though adrenaline is powerful in the moment, we show people are producing cortisol for 12 hours a day on average. Like, that's not good.
Right.
Right.
You're doing it from a different state of being. So it's a state of empowerment rather than a state of guilt or shame. And those are two totally different states of being, emotionally and physiologically.
Yeah.
One causes you to release the hormones of growth that, really energize you. So then that ice bath or those hard things actually give you more energy.
Right.
Yeah.
Rather than doing it from a place of stress or guilt or like, if I don't do this or I have to do this or else this, and then that already induces stress. Then you go into that situation and then you're already in that downward spiral and releasing the cortisol and adrenaline for 12 hours and you're burning out. That's why we feel tired at the end of the day.
Yep.
But when we get the nervous system right, the heart and brain in coherence, and we're doing it from that state, you start releasing a different set of chemicals and hormones into the body, then everything you're doing energizes you. It renews you. You become attractive. People are drawn to you, and you're operating from heart. Mm-hmm. And that was one thing that I was going to say with what's shifting for you that I can see is that you are correcting the way that like your approach, because it's coming more from a state of love and empowerment rather than a state of insecurity or fear.
Yes.
And it's just a correction, right? Like you weren't doing it wrong. Right. Or Brandon, like the way that you, like when you started working out because you didn't want to be scrawny, like that was coming from a place of really disempowerment and fear, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so as you correct that, which is what I love about this work, it really is getting into a state of love, which for, for you guys, like for Christ, is that for you? Is that correction in atonement or correction in love? It's a correction, not, that you were doing it wrong and now you're doing it right, or that it was bad and now it's good. You're just in alignment, which is really correcting it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have helped me change the perspective really of doing something and having faith that these correct actions, right? These things that we know lead to a result, you can do them out of faith versus doing them out of fear. And the way you feel also creates a desire to do it more versus, like I have to, like, oh, I want to start doing this because I felt so good.
Right.
I try to help people out with the cold plunge because people just, you're crazy. How cold is it again? Really, you start getting addicted to it. And you're addicted to the cold? Doesn't it hurt? No, you get addicted to the feeling you feel afterwards. If you pay attention to how you feel when you're done, it's like, I don't want to sit in the cold, but that feeling afterwards feels so good. I can't wait to have that feeling versus
gives you empowerment too, to know, man, I can do something super uncomfortable and I'm okay.
Yeah.
And I like it.
And I like it. Yeah. I like the feeling of being, I'm comfortable being uncomfortable, right? Like I'm almost uncomfortable being comfortable.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to say that too. Like once you start to get that payoff of those chemicals of growth, the hormones of growth, you don't ever want to go back and compromise yourself again to feel bad. It's like when you get in shape, you don't want to go back to being lazy and eating crappy food. Like it drives you because you start to get that payoff and you start to pay attention.
Yeah.
You pay attention, you start to manage all the things that we've talked about and prioritizing, and it's worth it.
Yeah.
So some, like you say, people look at the result and go, how did you do that? But it's like, I started way back here. You get these things in order and then it falls into place a lot of the time, and you wouldn't ever compromise that because you don't ever want to go back to the way that you were feeling. You don't ever want to go back to that insecurity and being driven by fear.
Yeah.
Because empowerment is so much greater, and it leads you to so many more opportunities that you're aware of.
It's like that dichotomy of success.
It is.
Right?
Yeah.
It's funny how it works.
I just, as we're talking here, I'm just thinking about all the people out there, because we've worked with so many people, and so many people just couldn't get themselves to do it. They just couldn't get out of the funk. And just to be vulnerable with everybody here. I mean, I was in that funk yesterday. I was in a funk yesterday, and I didn't know why. I don't know if you noticed we were at lunch, but I was in a funk, man. I was going to talk to Jeff about it, and it just wasn't the time. Like, I'll be fine, right? So I went home, talked to my wife about it, and talked to her. I'm like, okay, I feel better. And then, you just reached out last night, like out of the blue, and says, hey, have you been feeling like drained and stuff? And I don't know if you want to talk about this stuff on this podcast or whatever, but you had some people attached to you that in maybe a negative way. Have you been like drained lately? I'm like, dude, I've been like, what the heck? Like, I didn't know what the heck was. So I think there's a lot of people in that they're struggling, I would think more people are struggling than not. They feel like they've got this heavy darkness around them. They can't figure out why. It might be, I'm not doing what I should every day, so they feel the shame of that. I don't know what it is, but that's what it seemed like a lot of the people that I was working with through the years and still today that I coach struggle with is they don't feel maybe worthy. They don't feel worthy of succeeding. They don't feel like they're good enough, whatever.
I also think a lot of people compare themselves to what they perceive as other successful people and that their situation isn't similar, that they don't have, and they do. It's just the perspective of it. It's like anybody who succeeds is not perfect. Like nobody is perfect all the time. It doesn't matter who you are, right? We all make mistakes. And I think a lot of times people look at, like I know I used to, like I look at Brandon and go, man, he's a robot. Like, man, how am I ever going to be that good? Right. And then you start realizing like, oh, okay. That's all right. If I made a mistake, I can still pick it back up and go again, And I think that stops a lot of people. I don't know what you guys' comment would be on that, but I feel like a lot of people compare. So often they're comparing themselves to somebody else and feel like everybody else has it all together, even though they don't. We're all trying to figure this out.
Yeah,
totally.
Comparison is the thief of joy.
And we don't have it figured out either. Like we're doing the same thing everybody else is, but there's some things that are clear. Okay, so when we left your house last night, I was like, okay, let's get prep for the podcast tomorrow. We were kind of off yesterday too. Like it was just, I
felt that too. I was like, what?
Yeah, it just, and sometimes it's the world, and it's hard to identify. And I don't think we always need to know everything, but I think just paying attention and noticing that there is something that's off. And then we just have the tools to be able to kind of pinpoint it, which is super helpful.
Yes.
So when I left your house, I was like, he's a little off and so are we. So let's kind of clear the slate and get ready for tomorrow's podcast. We wanted this to be awesome and be in it to win it. So I just was muscle testing on our way home. And I was like, there's some people that have connected to you I just said, who have you been with or whatever, and it happens. It's not malicious. People don't mean to energetically. We just attach to each other for different reasons at different times. Who knows why?
Maybe someone's struggling and they're reaching out for help, right?
Totally.
Just energetically. And they end up dragging you down.
Because you allowed it, because you didn't realize
exactly. And a lot of times when you can't figure out what's going on, it's like, why do I feel so crappy? Why do I feel so stuck? Why does it feel so heavy right now? A lot of times that's the reason. It's not even like your stuff. So, we get into the comparison and we get into all that, but a lot of times it's like, it's other stuff too that it's just more than that just doesn't, it's hard to identify. And I go through it too. And I know how to do this stuff, Sometimes I notice, man, I've been really off today. And then I, do some work around it and figure it out and go, that's what it was. It was back when I was with that person earlier today. And since then I've been off. Or like I'll do work on, I worked on Lexi one day and I was like, what is this despair? Like, this is not an emotion I normally feel. And she feels it a lot because she feels this need to be so good, and when you can't be perfect, there's despair around that. And so I was like, you know what? I worked on Lexi earlier. I connected because I always want to help. And I'm like, here, just give it to me. I know what to do with it. So I'll take it, But I was feeling it, but it wasn't mine. And I could tell that it was just like, this is not me. And so when I kind of pinpointed it, I reached out to her and I was like, kudos to you for being so productive when you feel so crappy. Because if I felt like this all the time, I would not want to do anything. And she was like, thank you. That means a lot.
Yeah, no,
because it's like she does it anyway. And just
like, have you ever tried being married to Brandon?
I'm like, I think I know your problem. No, anyway, but I think that a lot of times it's like, okay, what's going on? And when we can start to kind of unload it and offload it, it was probably, I'd imagine, a little bit of a relief for you to go, God, that wasn't mine. And I'm so glad to get rid of it.
Totally.
It was because you start feeling like, what is wrong with me?
Yeah.
Am I getting it all wrong? But it was
not only that, you're praying, you're like,
yeah.
I can't get out of this. Like, what is the deal? Like, it was crazy.
No, I'm doing all the things, but I think that kind of, and, I'm not exactly sure like how it totally, how it went, but just finding a few of those things and offloading them, it was like, okay, let's disconnect some of those connections that had been made. That then what that does is it makes you feel off. Right. And then when you feel off, we talked about this in the podcast we recorded yesterday, is you're either living from inspiration or the memories of the past. So if you're feeling off, the first thing that you do is go back to the subconscious program. If you're feeling off, it's triggering a fear response of something feeling off, and it takes you right back to something else that felt off in your life, and you fear that that's going to happen again. Right.
Yes, exactly.
And then your focus goes right
back
there,
to that.
and you miss
and then
everything.
And then you recreate it.
You get the
and
same result.
Like, yes, you recreate it, right? And so then I was like, all right, you've got hopelessness trapped in your penetrating meridian, which is just an energy network in the body. And that hopelessness just feels like, is anything ever going to get better? Is this ever going to change? Kind of feeling like there's no way out. And it's like, logically we know that it's okay, but it's really hard to reason with that when that is such a...
It said it had female reproductive system issues, so I would not sure.
That totally makes sense.
I was going to bring that up.
So I'm not sure.
I sent him the penetrating meridian and the symptoms of imbalance, and the first thing is female reproductive system issues, but also like GI issues, circulatory issues, but spiritual issues, depression, and anxiety. And that was kind of what he was experiencing.
What's crazy you say that, because you were just talking about scriptures and how you felt like maybe you weren't,
No, like my spiritual, like seriously, I felt, what was it, spiritual?
Yeah, spiritual issues. It's like it's not connecting. It's like I'm doing
Brandon,
all the
you
things.
have spiritual issues.
Seriously, that's what I was feeling. I was like,
but do you think
why
maybe
is it not
just
fixing it?
this is a total question, but do you think that emotion comes from someone because they feel like I'm not doing enough spiritually, like I should be doing this and I'm not, and maybe if you think that's where it comes from?
I mean, sometimes it's hard to tell, like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg, you know, where it's like, did the spiritual issues come from the hopelessness, or did the hopelessness cause this to, you know what I mean?
Yeah, okay.
And so I don't know that it matters, and I think
And it
that's
can
probably,
be a combination, too.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so elusive to most of us
a
lot of the time, is because that's why it's so easy to get piled on top of and feel that you got these layers on top of it. I was like, what is going on?
Yeah.
But see,
because most of the time it's not even you're not even consciously aware, because the subconscious is very good at hiding that stuff.
I'd say almost nobody's conscious of it.
Yeah.
Unless they've worked with someone like you guys.
Yeah, and it's hard to and really you go into this without judgment. For me, I do. I mean, and that is pretty natural for me to, some people might need to know, well, why or how or whatever. And I'm just like, well, when I was getting certified, one of the things that I learned is anything can cause anything. So it really doesn't matter. Like there's so many, like we talked about yesterday too, there's millions of bits per second of information that we're being flooded with constantly. So it's really hard to know like what happened and when and how. But it's just when you start to notice that you're feeling off in the moment, and these are some of the contributing factors, it's like, let's clear those so that you can get into that state of coherence again. It doesn't matter how or why or whatever. It's just as soon as it's almost like it just needs to be brought up from the subconscious to the conscious awareness to let it go, to correct it however you feel spiritually, correct it with love. And so once it's identified, it's almost like a relief, like, oh my gosh, that's what it is. And I can let it go now that I've figured it out. But that hopelessness then leads to, then I was like, there's a belief here that was in your solar plexus chakra. That's your self-esteem. That's, I can't keep up with my thoughts, right? Because your thoughts are racing because now you're back in your program of your fear that something's feeling off. You feel hopeless. What's happened in the past that you're connecting.
Do you think there's a chance that because we're trying to do all this work to do some big things,
100%,
we're all being attacked with
I
this?
know exactly where. Yes, and that's why I was like, because of what you guys talked about yesterday, the plans that you're making, the movement that you're creating, 100%, absolutely.
Yeah. Opposition's job is to stop you,
Yes.
right? To stop all of us.
Yep.
Satan, adversary, opposition. Same thing, right?
So it's like if you can fill off and then you can get that hopelessness and you go back to the program because the brain is a pattern recognition system. So when you feel that, you're going to go back to something that's known and you're going to replay a trauma or a fear of the past.
Exactly
right?
what was happening yesterday.
But look how that works. It makes so much sense when we talk about it like this, because the subconscious operates at 40 million bits per second. So when we have millions of bits of information coming through all our senses, but the subconscious is that much faster because your conscious operates at 4 bits, right? So that's why it's so hard to consciously outthink a subconscious program because, like she said, anything can cause anything. So it could be like something Jeff did frustrated me, and then someone said something at the gym, and then all of a sudden I'm in that negative state. And by magnetics, I'm going to attract more of the same. So that frustration leads to more anger, something pisses me off, then depression, then anxiety. And it just all floods in and it just buries you like we talked about a couple seconds ago. And then to positively outthink that, how well did that work yesterday? Like it just doesn't.
I couldn't get out of it.
Right.
Well,
and
your
like,
subconscious mind is running at 40 million bits per second.
And it's just gathering more and more. And it's because, like she said, brain's a pattern recognition system. So it's pinpointing all these things that should reinforce of why you should feel like that. Well, because this happened back then and this and this and this and this and then blah, 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 blah. It's just, it is such a lightning fast response, but then so connected to everything else that it closes off focus. And you're looking through the straw of possibility, and it's like, oh, well, nothing's possible. So maybe I should
So
just
if someone doesn't
stop.
have an Altie and Kevin to call, what do they do?
You can call us. We'll put our number in the show notes.
They do. That's the.
You
Call-
can,
We're here.
So I have a question in that situation. Maybe Brandon, if you want. I don't know if you want to talk about it. So what is it? I mean, because obviously we know it's important to have someone like you, like a coach. Like we grew up with coaches, in our whole business, everything we've ever done was like have a coach. And I believe that's what's so powerful about what you guys do. What is the process, or, and just simple, like what is the process? How'd you get through it? Because you're saying, oh man, I feel so much better. I recognized it. So what's the process?
So what was it for me?
Yeah.
Well, it did help to talk to my wife, just to talk about it and get some perspective, just getting it out, like almost hearing me talk about it.
Yeah.
I felt way better after I did that. So when you guys were there last night, I was actually feeling good last night.
Yeah.
You still, since I was still off a little bit. So, but then
It's because we went and drove the Raptor.
yeah,
That helps.
Yes.
that does help.
Raptor fixes everything.
Exactly. But that was big. I think just talking about it and pinpointing a couple of the reasons why I was feeling that way. Like you're saying, recognizing, okay, this is where that's coming from. This is a lie. This is truth. And, just talking about it. Yeah. She didn't have to really say much. She said a few things that really helped, but it was more me just having to, she's listening to me. She's having a good spouse is
validating is
reinforcing. Is huge. Right. And I try to be careful not to have her be the source of my, needing her to feel better. I want that to come from the Savior, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes I think it's like, even with you guys, I think the Savior puts you in my life, for example, right? Like,
Exactly.
that's how he works. So people go, well, Kevin and Altie, are you saying that, you don't believe that it's God's power? I do believe it's God's power. I believe it's all God's power that does all of this.
Yep.
And he just works through us to help that. You have a way to explain it. Both of you have your different ways of explaining it, but to me, when you explain it, it makes perfect sense, and then I can start to articulate it in my mind and start to practice it, and being able to tune in on your Wednesday night calls that you do. Go as you guys go through that group call and go through some of the practices there. I'm not able to be on there every time, but the times I've been able to be on, it's a practice, I think. So, what's the process? I mean, I don't know if I have the answer to what the process is every time. That was yesterday.
Well, and we gave you a replacement too, or I gave you a replacement,
which is like another word for change of perspective.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like,
so it was like, okay, let's
Right.
take this belief that you're living by right now that kind of seems to be overtaking things, and take that and shift you from the subconscious programs and memories of the past to more of that conscious awareness and living with intention and inspiration. So then, I find the emotions that are attached to the belief I can't keep up with my thoughts, because that's like what, as soon as I texted, it was like, yes, that is exactly what I've been feeling. So then I was like, okay, here's the replacement for that. I am aligned with the prosperous power of the universe. Like, what a difference. How different does that feel? And it's almost like giving you permission, and like, oh, I can. Okay. And then it opens up that possibility, and then that becomes your focus. And then with, Brandon knows the techniques with heart-brain coherence and kind of shifting, but it's noticing and then shifting. And then, having support with a replacement or being able to clear stuff out to make it a little faster, easier is helpful too. But bringing you back to alignment over and over and over again.
And just what led me into that funk, just so kind of everybody knows kind of what happened. So it's a chain of events that kind of led to yesterday that I went back to. Okay, so I went on a hunt, an elk hunt last week before Christmas, right? Which probably wasn't the best timing because it's right before Christmas and Lexi's having to do all the Christmas stuff, right? So I already feel guilty. And then I come back and I feel like she resents me. Whether she does or not, I don't know. But I'm like,
you're already prepared for it.
I'm already like, so I'm acting as if she's resentful towards me, which isn't necessarily true. But again, it's a lie, right? Yep. And then Monday night, we were watching a show and there was an inappropriate scene that popped up. And so it's like Lexi's for sure, like just blows up, right?
Lexi's done.
And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. And we shouldn't have watched this. It was Yellowstone, right? Everybody watches Yellowstone.
It's a little risque.
Yeah, which I didn't know. So anyway, what happened was I was hunting, and one of my buddies says, "Oh, you got to watch that show. It's awesome." So we get home and let's check it out. Anyway, yeah, shouldn't watch it. So obviously that happened, and then that's in my brain like all week, like crap. Like I feel bad, right? And so it's just these little tiny things that I did that I allowed to continue to fester instead of deal with. And so then, you have a day like yesterday, I'm like, I am in a funk. What is the deal? And then I don't know. To pull out of so just interesting how things like that, I don't know, just all seem to kind of add up.
Yeah.
Well, and it can knock you out of balance. But I really think, with as many people as we worked with, that is so much more common than people who are living their life in a state of alignment.
Well, and negative emotions or stress accumulate. And so it's not to your point, it's not what happened a week ago that just was the one thing. It was everything since then. And then it becomes this backbreaker and it's like, ugh. And so it's so important to remove that energy. But to your point, what can you do in the moment? Heart focused breathing is going to be your most effective tool in the moment because that will calm down that subconscious chatter, balance the nervous system, and now allow you to come from a different perspective because perspective's driven from heart. So if your heart rate variability in the moment is that of frustration, your perspective's largely going to be based off frustration. So you're going to see most things in your life as frustrating. So in the moment, if you're frustrated or if you're, in a funk, if you're feeling that, heart focus, breathe for a couple minutes until you calm that chatter down. And that's the resilience part, right? Is not letting our ego override our spirit and saying, nope, not doing that. I'm going to shift back to heart focus, breathe for a couple minutes. Now, can I feel peace about something? Can I feel gratitude about something? Doesn't matter what it is.
Right.
Anything. And we all have so much to be grateful for.
Yep.
Now, how can I look at this?
Yeah.
It's just like anything, right? You got to practice it.
Right.
Yeah.
Because if you don't do it every day, or if you get lazy with it, then you try to just do it one day and it feels impossible.
Right.
It's like if you stopped working out and then all of a sudden went back to the gym, let's say you were benching, 200 pounds, 3 sets, whatever, and you don't do it for 6 months and you go back and try to do it again, it feels impossible, right? And same thing with I think all the stuff we're talking about, like that's why your daily disciplines are so important. If you stay on top of them, you can keep yourself out of ego, because ego is a powerful thing. As soon as that ego takes over, it's pretty tough to just eliminate ego by yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Many times it takes an outside force to humble you.
Yep.
You're compelled to be humbled.
Yeah.
And it's so much harder to humble yourself. So if you can just keep yourself in that, and I'm not talking about humility is strength, right? So if you can keep yourself in that heart-led, phase, it's a heck of a lot easier than trying to get back to it. So I try to remind, and I don't know why. I'm like, I fall off all the time. Like, I'm only a degree off, but I was a degree off for 6 months. And so now I got to overcorrect to get back on track. And it's
so do you think these practices create new neurological connections in the brain? Is that what's happening as you start practicing this over and over and over?
So just like anything buildable skill.
Yeah.
So just like, let's say, shooting. If you're wanting to be a marksman and hit a target, but you only shoot once every 6 months, how good are you going to be? Right? In the moment under that stress, you can hit the target? Probably not.
Yeah.
But same thing.
And practicing in between, that's where you get good at it. So if you can start to correct moment to moment, like when you notice and shift and shift and shift, then you're practicing all day on the little things. And then when a big thing comes up, it's just like, the muscle memory, and you already know what to do and you can do it.
Yeah. And will some things still knock you out of balance for sure. But is your neural baseline like higher than it used to be? Yeah. And that's the point, is do you handle most things better than you used to? And that's one thing I wanted to ask, because knowing Brandon for so long, like, even though you were a machine back then, I think you do things way better now. Right? Even like Jeff, like, you look like, I would say you look better than you've looked before in your life.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Right?
I feel that way. But,
right? I think you look the best.
right?
I don't think I said that right. I think you look the best you've ever looked.
still kind of ugly, but
Right? I mean, but like for you too, Brandon, like I think you both look better than you've looked. You are more resilient than you've ever been. But I think that's because you've done a ton of work. And so the point is, like, can we still get in a funk? Like, greatly successful people still trip up on things? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But like, are you that much faster at getting back to zero, or back to zero, or
I think it's great of the
expansion?
condemnation too, right? So now that we do know these things, now if we do fall off, it's like worse, right? So we have a responsibility now that we know what we know to continue to build upon that. Yeah. I believe that. I mean, I think when I say the greater condemnation, it just means if you
there's accountability.
I've got this knowledge and now I'm not going to apply it. Now you're you're going to be. You're held to a higher standard.
Choosing not to take an action is still a choice.
Right.
Right. It's still an action. Not taking action is still an action.
Right.
Yep.
A lot of people. Yeah, I think that's where cold. I'll be honest. Cold has helped me so much. I think in that response, is just realizing that. I think those hormones and realizing how I feel, and sometimes I've learned that's a great tool for me. Where before I just didn't even realize I was having this. Really, growing up, my life was just so tough. I just thought it was supposed to be that way. This is how it's supposed to go. And just avoid it, right? If I can avoid it, then it's not real. I just tell myself it's not, but it's not true, right? Now it's like, all right, if I feel a funk, there's tools that we have, and that's what I think is so great for me. Get in the cold and realize, like, it's the last thing I'm thinking about. I get out, I feel great, and it changes every emotion that I have. If it's a negative emotion, I get out, feel great again. But then sometimes you have these patterns that if that pattern gets strong enough, you have to have someone help you with that perspective and change the belief or the message that's going on in your mind. Right?
I think we should hit on this a little bit too, because I'll tell you another thing, like, just talking about all of this we're talking about now, like yesterday, I felt like this is so petty and this is so stupid. This I don't have problems. I don't have issues. And this is what I'm telling myself. Right. And I think it's important. You had me read that. You told me about the book, The Choice, right? The Choice is Edith Eger. She was
yes. I did download that. I need to listen
concentration. To it. It is incredible. But she talks about how even though she went through all of that, she goes, somebody who maybe ordered a car and it came in the wrong color and they're upset about that car is the same trauma response that she went through in the concentration camp, which is, you go, that doesn't, her point was, look, it's still real. Mm-hmm. And so yesterday was still real. And I kind of reminded myself that, okay, this may be petty. Maybe I think it is, but it's real and I better deal with it, and because my philosophy is this, man, if you're focused on serving and helping and you're engaged in a good cause, that you don't have these issues. Right.
Yeah. And
I don't know if that's necessarily true, but I do feel like when you're, so to me, it's also a red flag that I need to get even more focused on good causes and stay engaged in that, because I do think that helps you stay in that heart coherent space, right? Mm-hmm. I think when we start to drift because maybe we have it's been the holidays, not in my normal routine, I have a tough time.
Families in town.
Yeah, that's the worst part. No. But it does throw me off. I do much better when I have a routine and I can stay in my routine, and I need to get better at when we have holidays or we go, like we're going to go on a family cruise in a couple months, being able to go and just be present and enjoy it instead of like, whoa, I'm like drifting, because I feel like I'm drifting when I'm not working. And I know that's not, but
that's not
so
true.
these are all Brandon Neal's issues we're bringing out here.
Well, it's funny because it's awesome because I think it makes you real. And this is another thing. It doesn't, someone posted, I saw a very big influencer on social media yesterday said, what's more important, confidence or humility? And I said, well, I think humility breeds confidence. If you think you're confident without humility, I think you're arrogant. Right. And so I think that, when we go through these challenges and we're real with people can go, hey, you've won big, but that doesn't mean that you don't have challenges or things we need to change or adjust along the way. Right. And us being willing to confront those things helps not just ourselves, but it also helps others. And so I think people should realize that. For me, for a lot of years, like I was saying before, I didn't want to tell my story. I was embarrassed. I felt like people would look at me differently, not realizing that, I talked to Whittle and he goes, dude, why don't you tell this? And I needed my hero to tell me it's okay, and when he was okay with it, it's like all of a sudden I
gave you permission to be okay with it, right?
Right.
Well, and I think one thing to keep in mind too that is helpful when things like this come up, it's like, what is this revealing to me? And it's not always like this negative thing that's like, oh, I still have so many problems that need to be dealt with. But it's like so many things came up. Okay, being energetically attached or connected to somebody that isn't helpful. And then there's a belief there that could be addressed. And then also brought to your attention, maybe I need to be more involved in a cause. And it's like so many good things are coming up from this that can be addressed and corrected, that what a blessing it is. So it feels really hopeless when it feels like there's something wrong. And I got to figure it out rather than going, okay, there's something that's calling my attention and what is it? Yeah. And I'm looking for it, because that shifts from the subconscious to the conscious mind, because you have to be aware to look for what is being revealed to you. And so it shifts you from ego to spirit, or from fear or your brain to your heart or to love. Yeah. And that's the correction. And so when we continually correct all day, every day, you don't have to spend hours on your knees praying every day, or, okay, I have to have this in order. Like I have to do all this, scripture reading. Not that that's not helpful. It's great. But trickling that in, but it's that continual correction all day throughout the day that keeps you in alignment with that power, with source, with love, with coherence, with all the things. And then, you don't have to do so much work in between.
It's like giving yourself grace to grow.
Yeah.
You have to. I mean, if you're going to grow, you better give yourself some grace.
True.
And others too, right?
Because you're going to get opposition to it, right?
Yeah.
Like, you better believe it, which is why it came on heavy yesterday. I mean, like I said, you guys are creating a movement. There's a lot of lives that will continue to be impacted here. And you're doing it from such a different state than you did before. So now you're taking all the discipline that you've learned and all the success that you've had, and you're coupling it with real like passion and heart and love and alignment, and that's a totally different like impact you're going to have, which brings a whole different level of opposition.
Yeah,
Sure.
the impact. Well, and that from my perspective is like, to me, it's awesome to see you respond that way. I know it doesn't feel awesome to you at the time.
Just like, yes.
No, really, because I mean, I think what we're getting ready to do is going to change so many people's lives in such a positive way, and hopefully generationally, right? Because I know, like, your example did that for me. I think this movement we're creating was solid, and what we're getting ready to do. And so I think it's awesome that you put pressure on yourself. It just tells me that you care. It matters to you. You want to be real. And I think a lot of people want that in their journey to success, right? That's that's a lot of their emotions. They want it so bad. They want it to be true. But their natural subconscious response is operating out of all this fear.
Yep.
So I don't know. I think.
Do you guys want to talk about what you're putting together, or is it not ready to be unveiled? Okay,
Or do you want to unveil it on your podcast?
All right.
No, it's fine. We've already talked about it.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
It's funny because, again, this elk hunt last week, I was having a great time elk hunting, and Jeff was home working diligently on our outline.
So you felt guilt for that too.
I probably felt some guilt for that too.
He's like, hey, man, I'll get us some meat out here if you'll go
I
ahead.
justified it. I trained him to do all this stuff. So
True. Yeah, you still owe me.
Yeah,
So-
yeah.
No,
Still
I'm
in the
joking.
deficit here.
Got to justify it somehow. No, but he put together a great outline. In fact, we can probably just kind of go over it a little bit today because it's really, really good. And so we really, what we're thinking is having maybe one every quarter and having a kind of a theme of every quarter, and maybe
A live event.
Yeah.
Okay.
Live event. So people can come in on maybe a Friday, and it's a classroom type setting, and we give them a workbook and give them tools and strategies and things they can actually take and use in their lives to become solid husbands, wives. If they want to bring their kids, I mean, they could do that. And just cover all of these areas. So like this first one, we're thinking creating warriors, like warriors. We need more warriors out there in the world that are kind of have all these things in place. So we've got finances, sales, fitness, faith, family are kind of the big topics. And so like finances, there's Jeff put down here, he says, how to create a budget, how to track your net worth, different investment vehicles, which I think will be very helpful, and bring some people in that are bigger players than us when it comes to investments. And I think a lot of people don't realize, there's so many investment opportunities out there, right? Everybody always wants your money, but very few of them you should actually probably say yes to. Very few, right? Yeah. And so just, how to identify those, how to be wise with those decisions.
And how to choose investments that actually hit your goals. Right? Because, a lot of people choose investments because it sounds like a good opportunity, and maybe it is, but it doesn't achieve your goal.
Right.
Yes.
Which can create some frustration. Because even if it's good, but it doesn't get you closer to where you want to be, is that,
Well, some people might have like a lump sum that they got from an inheritance, and other people might have like $200 a month to
Exactly.
start
Some are
working
looking
with.
for a cash flow. Some are looking for a return over 5-10 years,
Yeah.
So, yep, they're looking for, exactly. And then taxes. A lot of people are reactive when it comes to paying taxes. They wait till the end of the year. And like if you go to a car dealership today, everybody's trying to buy their car to write off their taxes the last day of the year.
Right. Yeah.
You're reactive versus planning.
Yeah.
Big difference.
Yeah.
Yep. And then just how to reduce your financial stress so you can actually stay creative. That's a big one. A lot of people over leverage themselves, and then they can't think creatively because they're in stress, right?
They're responding to the financial responsibilities of their life versus creating the financial life.
Yep. You want to go over sales and fitness?
Yeah, I think this is an important one for this, though, is subconscious beliefs and thought patterns and how they affect your life. Because I think a lot of times, this is one of the things that I didn't learn early on until later is like, what are my subconscious beliefs? And what are my thought patterns? What am I telling myself? And how do they show up outwardly in my life? What is the response to that? Sales, we talked about these things today: prospecting, setting appointments, overcoming objections, like the art of asking questions. A lot of times, you meet someone who's really good at sales and it doesn't feel like a sale.
Yeah.
It actually feels like you're dealing with someone who's a professional.
Right.
Most people's response of a salesperson is like a used car salesman or whatever. It's like the last person you want to talk to, but that's just not a pro. It's just not. It should feel good, right? Sales should feel great. You should be helping people solve their challenges. Customer service, how to become a pro, building teams. I think this is a big one: creating a winning environment.
Totally.
How do you create a winning environment in your organization if you have a business, or even at home? How do you create these winning environments? Leadership versus management, spotting fake gurus. A lot of times there's, especially with social media, gives everybody a voice. And some people have done a really good job of actually getting that voice heard. However, what is the foundation that it was built on?
Right.
And that's hard if it wasn't built on a solid foundation of actually knowing some knowledge of how to build a business, and are they really a master of their craft, or did they just get good at, branding
marketing,
themselves, which is great, right? That's a key. But usually a lot of these guys that are really good at marketing aren't marketing.
Yes.
They're marketing some course or something else they're selling. So how do you spot that? How do you know who you should or shouldn't listen to? That's an important thing. Fitness, how do you build these long-lasting habits, habits that will change your life long-term? How to create an environment for fitness success, like we talk about one things, if you want to eat less junk food, just don't put it in your house.
Right.
I saw an Instagram post last night Kelsey sent me, and it said, can every restaurant in America please get rid of all the waiters and waitresses that offer my kid juice and chocolate milk, right? And it's like
water.
Like let the parents decide, but it's just, how do you create these strategies for long-lasting health,
Right.
Which people don't know how to eat, how much to eat.
Yeah.
Working out too. Right. They don't know how much to lift, how often to lift, and it's, everybody's different, of course, but there's some guidelines that everybody can follow.
There are some strategies for overall health and longevity that can improve people's lives, cold plunge, sauna, breath work, which is, obviously very powerful tools that,
I was going to say we could bring Kevin in to show how to lift weights, but he's not very, doesn't have very many muscles. So
I don't know if anybody believes
I don't know what I'm doing. I just go, do stuff.
Just
Kevin Dapper will be over the weightlifting.
That's funny. Keep going, man. You can take the next couple.
So faith, tips to leading with faith without being overbearing. Just being a good example to people, inspiring and leading through the way you live your life versus, trying to coerce or manipulate.
Right.
Leading with love, leading others with different beliefs. We all have different beliefs, but we can still all work together as a team. That can be a trick sometimes. You might have someone who's polar opposite with their beliefs as you, and, you still find ways to work together. Being agreeable, things like that. Should you question your faith? That's really, that's something we've been talking a lot about on our podcast is, you absolutely should question your faith. If you can't question your faith, how are you ever going to gain your own belief system? Right. And you can borrow someone else's for a period of time, but there's going to come a time where that's not going to, it's not going to cut the mustard. Right. And then family, just tips on creating a thriving marriage, setting goals as a family, creating affirmations, creating a legacy plan, creating habits as a family that lead to long-term health and happiness, creating a family mission statement that can go on for generations versus just, and that's something that, I know you got from Greg Gunn.
Yep.
A lot of successful business owners, their kids will take over their business, right, and do pretty well with it. But then the next generation tends to screw it up, right? Because there wasn't a. So if we could have a solid foundation as a family that can carry on for generations, I think that would be good. So that'll be like our Friday will be like a workshop like that. Have people like you in with us to cover all the work that you do. I think it'd be very beneficial. And then the Saturday would be for anybody who wanted to do the experience side of it. And so like this first one, we'll probably do like a long range shooting school for half a day. Just get people to maybe shoot out to maybe 1,000 yards.
Cool.
Never done that before. And then maybe go do a cold plunge and, just maybe, I don't know, have steaks or something that night, or was, and so that experience
Testimony meeting.
It'll be a day, it'll be an experience, and there'll be a small intimate group there, and just we'll become great friends there. We'll get to know each other there, and then prepare for the next quarter and
start building a tribe. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and what's cool about this is I think that it doesn't matter what career path you're on, what you're doing for work, or what your faith is. I mean, this is applicable for everybody in every area of life. And everybody wants that.
Yeah, it's awesome you say that, because I was telling Brandon, there are a lot of men and women who want to work at a 9 to 5, which goes polar opposite against my beliefs of what I want to do, right? But that doesn't mean that we don't need people in this world that are really good at doing that, plus being incredible parents and being great examples in our communities.
And they're happy as a lark doing it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
they love it.
Yeah, what better mission could we have than providing great examples of people who want that, but in this modern entrepreneur era where everybody's saying you should quit your job and do all these things, where maybe somebody doesn't want to, but how can they still have a thriving life in all these other areas? They love their job, but they want to thrive in other areas, and they want their kids to, to
well,
grow
they're living
thrive.
a life of alignment and a life of inspirations, and you can do that in a 9 to 5, and you can do that, whatever your heart's desire is.
I was going to say, if we were all applying all this all the time, how great would we feel about ourselves? And if we feel really good about ourselves, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
We're going to treat everybody even that much better, right? And just be that. I mean, it's just going to be a big impact. So I think that's a big thing. I think a lot of people don't feel really good about them, right? And about themselves. We've all been there, and when we feel really good, we do really good.
Yeah.
We create.
When you guys are highly networked with a lot of really successful people in each of these areas of life that have really put in a lot of effort to refine themselves in this way. So, I mean, your credibility is off the charts in the way that you conduct your lives yourselves, and then the people you have surrounded yourselves with who are highly successful financially, in their families, spiritually, all these things. And so you guys are a great resource to have. So, I mean, I'm grateful to have you in my back pocket.
Yeah,
Thank you. We feel the same about you guys,
Agreed.
for sure.
So
we do.
Yeah.
How long have we been? How long have you guys kept us here? It's 1:50. Hey, we already did a podcast before you got here on your own podcast, because you guys were like a little bit late for your own podcast. Just want to make sure everybody knows that.
Yeah.
I can do this because I'm your brother-in-law.
It's
So
true.
I can razz you
It's
guys.
We were a little late to our own podcast recording, so
And we like to make an entrance.
Right.
There you go. All right.
We're here, everybody knows. So, I mean, I think we've covered some really great
No, I
Anything
think that
you
was
wanna
fantastic.
wrap up with?
No, and thanks for being here. But that what Brandon just said, I think we'll wrap up with this is when you change your internal state, everything externally will be better. When you feel good, when Deion Sanders says, if you look good, you feel good. If you feel good, you play good. If you play good, you get paid good, right? And so when we start feeling really good, law of attraction, that electromagnetic field's expanded, you can do anything and the possibilities open up. So like a 9 to 5, you enjoy doing that, entrepreneurs, whatever, but the better you feel, the more possibilities will open up, the more potentials. And all of us, I fully believe that, like Brandon said, when you believe in yourself, that belief, and that's what we help with, is the belief end. When you believe in yourself, anything's possible.
Amen.
And that's it. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you for waiting for us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
thanks for being great
Great.
friends. Thanks for being great mentors, and thanks for your example in the world. But at the end of the day, go out there, implement these habits, become better every day, and watch your life change. But thank you for listening to the Healing Works podcast, where we impact lives by healing your heart and your mind so you can live your best life.